down tight over your ears. So take it away, Dave and Mickey.
Well, I suppose I should begin. Welcome to Dave and Mickey's Shiny Side Out on WZZR, coming to you from Australia for Revolution Radio on freedomslips.com. It's home to fresh, unadulterated ideas and conversations in the chat room and a place to get your merch. This is show number 473. I didn't think this was going to happen. But there it is. It keeps advancing by one. What an amazing world that is. It's incremental. And it is something that both Mickey and I weren't sure was ever going to go past the first year. But you know what? Here we are. You can catch us on air, online, on your smart device, and in the archives. So grab an app to listen anywhere or listen at home on a Grace tabletop digital radio. If you miss the prior show, that's with Solaris, she had Jimmy Brent on, and they were discussing world affairs, not dissimilar to what I'm going to be talking about in the first hour at least. And if Mickey's able to join us, because he's not with us today, he's caught in traffic, actually, en route home from, a good day out with the family, which is, it's quite rare these days, actually, to get out and do things. I know I cleaned up outside my house, and we've got a council cleanup coming. That's where you put stuff on the curbside and the council come and grab it, which is really cool. I think we get 4 of them in my council jurisdiction per year, and they're free, and you can still take stuff to the tip though if you need to. You know what? You hear me talk about Solaris every show, and if you don't know who that is, it costs about $5 a month to access the archives, and you can download her shows, our shows, and all the host shows. Like for a coffee, the value of a coffee per month. I mean, it's really not much. And we don't ask you to do it, and sign up to the archives, and there's a Patreon thing there, and it's really easy. Look, I do. You should do it too. I even have the added bonus of being able to contribute to the content. What are you doing? And if you like anything at all that Mickey and I say that is available either on our YouTube or in the archives, do add to our Patreon, and you'll find it in a link below in the video. Please do, because it'll help us. Look, Mickey and I, because we live in Australia, we acknowledge the traditional custodians of the land. When I live, it's the 𝐫𝐸𝐿𝐴𝐸𝐿, and sometimes it's the Bungalung, depending on where I am, and for Mickey, it's the Daruk people. And we pay our respects to elders past, present, and future. And thank you very much for not killing us all. You killed quite a lot of you, and we killed a lot of you, and you killed a lot of us initially. But hopefully we can just get along. It makes a lot of difference. Where I live, you can actually see the signs on the side of the road. It has a big, huge sign, like it's a traffic sign, but it's not. It's beautifully coloured and painted in the Aboriginal colours, and it says you are entering. Where I live, obviously it's the 𝐫𝐸𝐿𝐴𝐸𝐿, the place of their jurisdiction, I suppose. I keep saying that word a lot. It's like telemetry. I say that a lot as well. In my industry, they're things I usually discuss. Look, this is the beginning of show number, let me have a look, 473. And that means that I can play my intro vid. And I wrote this piece of music, which you can't hear on the radio, but you can hear it on the archives on YouTube. And hopefully that's monetized through utility that I have. And I've got some songs. I've written a book. I'm a musician. I've got some things out there on the internet. Spotify, the Apple, iTunes. It's available in like 40 different platforms around the world, the music I wrote. And it's not for everybody. It's like my book. That's not for everybody. But let me start with today's news. All right. So today I'm going to be talking about the vaccine and the virus and the government elite, but also something that came to light this week as well, which was plain pause. Now, it's not going to make any sense to you unless you know what on earth I'm talking about, but I will explain it when we get to it, so don't feel like you're alienated from it, and there's a pun in there. All right, so I'll start. I'm going to share my middle screen. For those of you who are only listening to this on radio, there's a live stream of this on YouTube. Look for Shiny Side Out, and you should be able to find the live stream. And if anyone's used my Facebook link to grab it, hi to you too. Welcome aboard. Now, I'm going to restate this. I have to every time I talk to someone about it, and that is the global confirmed cases of the coronavirus. Now, it's more than a year. I've been tracking it for more than a year. I've been typing the numbers in every single day for a whole more than a year, since December 2019 when it started in China. I'll show you the numbers that I've been typing in. How cool is this? See if I can do that. So there we go. From 20th of January is when I started typing it, but I've been watching it before until I worked out a way of being able to do it all the way to now. So it's something else, but I got a summary page which kind of makes it better. Now, the virus is like 135 million confirmed tested people, and of those people, there is currently 2.9 million deaths. Now, these people died not as a result of the virus. I'm going to say some did, but people who died with the virus is what this count is. That's all that is. And I'm not going to downplay the severity of it. I think it's a challenge for certainly this generation, this decade. I think we're going to be looking at it. But with 800,000 people being found to have contracted the virus per day, is a lot of tests. Even if that was $1 a test, which it isn't, the people who make the test are making an absolute squillion off us. So there's more than 135 million of them, and if they were $10 each, that we're still looking at $1 billion just for the confirmed ones, not even the ones that were tested. And there's 405 million tests have been performed in the US alone. Triple that for the planet, right? That's a lot of people are making money. There's a lot of money to be had. I remember when China said, "Oh, help! We've got a lot of there's a problem here. Send us all your masks." So we sent them all to them. Then they sold it back to us. Italy received the purchase of the masks after they donated them to China, and they were sent. They sent them to China, and then when they said, "Hey, China, can we have those masks back? Because we're having a real big issue here," and they said, "No, you can buy some masks off us, because now we're the only ones on the planet that have masks." So good luck with that. So they bought them, and they received their own masks back in the same boxes. That's appalling. That's just the pits, isn't it? It's extortion almost. But anyway, so deaths per day is currently at 14.9, nearly 15,000 people dying per day. It's awful. Their numbers are terrible. But I'm just going to say that Brazil is currently having the worst time of it. They're now accelerating uncontrollably. Everyone else has kind of, got it under control, but not Brazil. There was a news story I watched this week where there was they said thousands of children are dead as a result of the new strain that's now ravaging Brazil. There's also claims I've heard where the Brazilian leader really should have a second look at themselves, because they were claiming there wasn't anything. What virus? There's no virus. It's just rubbish. And now it's out of control. Good luck with that. and they're at the highest point now of their daily cases that they've ever been. And it doesn't look like it's going to get any better. Also, the new virus, not only is it killing children, small children, but it's also killing the 18 to 35s faster as well. So remember before, this was like the elderly problem where all of those old people were dying, people over 50, and that's me. And the elderly in nursing homes, that's not me, but that's my parents. That was awful. And it was kind of, well, it's happened to them, it's not happened to me. But now I think there's going to be a lot of urgency. And I'll talk about that in a second, right, what that truly means. But when you look at the US in comparison, that's doing so much better right now than its peak around, Christmas, New Year. Christmas, New Year, you guys were at 300,000 people being, daily case infections, which is pretty high, right? I'm not disputing how high that is, but now, at 100,000 is Brazil, or thereabouts, getting pretty close, and this isn't going anywhere. It's not going anywhere. I've got that one first. So anyway, so there's claims now. This is the South African variant. Now there's claims that Israel has made, and it's not just Israel. There's a lot of countries now backing this up, but they're all saying that the Pfizer vaccine isn't helping anybody because of the new South African variant. And the quote is, the coronavirus variant discovered in South Africa can break through the Pfizer COVID vaccine to some extent. A real-world data study in Israel has found, though its prevalence in the country is low and the research has not been peer-reviewed. Think about that when you hear it come to your news outlet near you. I believe, but since they're saying they're naming the Pfizer vaccine and it isn't peer-reviewed, that this advertising time is a AstraZeneca advertising time being purchased to fight the Pfizer, the opinion that Pfizer is better. However, remember that you still get the virus, right? But I'll talk about that in a second. So, okay, considering that none of the vaccines prevent you getting the virus, and none of the vaccines prevent you from transmitting it. Right? Let's just start from there. That's the level playing field. Well, the virus gets past all of the vaccines. You still become infected with the virus, but the only benefit is you have much slighter effects. Like you're asymptomatic. Remember, you can carry the virus and not know and still spread it to people? Well, that's asymptomatic. You don't know you've got it. You don't even have a sniffle, but you're infected. Now, well, guess what? It must be said that all viruses need a host to replicate it. Simple as that. That is, a virus is defined by its inability to replicate on its own. Okay? Now, at each replication of the virus, there is an opportunity to mutate. Each mutation can affect the virus in the gestation period, the severity that you experience, and how transmissible the virus is. Now, it can weaken, strengthen, or maintain each of those three properties every time it mutates. It has an opportunity to touch one of those points. All right? So think about a virus that the gestation period is longer, or maybe the severity is fatal, rather, and it's extremely transmissible. So that would be an ideal virus. It would have a really long gestation period where it's highly transmissible and symptomless. So if you don't know you've got it and you're spreading it, that's ideal. That would be perfect. And then it can make you drop dead later on. Well, so the only reason that would be an ideal virus is so it doesn't kill a victim too fast, because then it would quickly run out of victims. That's just the math in determining what is, a worse virus than other viruses. If you could see, if you say you turned purple when you had it, like your skin, well, maybe when your skin went blue, like Avatar, right? Your skin just went blue, and then people go, oh, they've got the virus, I can stay away from them. It would run out of hosts. It would run out of victims. It wouldn't be able to propagate itself. And there's the big problem, right? So what I worry about here is, since the vaccines are designed to only limit the severity that you experience of the virus will still mutate its way around each of the vaccines and have every opportunity to linger in the human population for decades. Decades. Requiring a new vaccine each year in order to keep up with the variants. It's always going to be a chasing game. The coronavirus family of viruses, going back to 2002 and trying to find a vaccine against them, because that would be awesome if we could find an injection that just stopped us getting them, actually caused a whole bunch of problems with humans and the animal testing. Right now, they're considering testing the very young children with the new vaccines, and you've got to say that can't be a tremendous outcome, right? We shouldn't be allowing people to test vaccines on humans. The emergency approvals that are allowing the vaccines to be deployed come with an indemnity. They're mostly voluntary, and they don't cost you anything. All of our trade practices around the world don't cover something that was voluntary and free as an inappropriate, or there's no recourse from you suffering anything. But there's also an added legislation that was passed to prevent you from pursuing any, monetary rectification for something it might have caused you. And I think that's kind of wrong. It's kind of wrong. All my alarm bells went off when I was reading that's how they've approached this vaccine. This it kind of all just seems too quick for me. All the people that I spoke to and have spoken with about it, people in medical fields, people who have very, very close friends who've been working in labs and doing virus research for years, they've all said 7 to 10 years. That's how long it takes to get a vaccine. 7 to 10 years. So how's this for 1 year? Oh yeah, we had the money. No, you didn't. You spent the money on your own with the hope that you'd be able to sell your vaccines. The AZ vaccine. I'm not saying vaccines are bad at all. Never. And I'll get the Pfizer one, no doubt. That's me, right? Everyone make their own choice. I prefer to like the mRNA vaccines over the AZ vaccine through the way that they operate, where for me, my choice was that the virus uses the same mRNA replication method, and it doesn't take over the nucleus of your cell like the AZ one does. So for me, that's my preference. Any of the the Moderna, Johnson & Johnson or Pfizer mRNA it would be my preference over the adenovirus, modified adenovirus with an mRNA payload. I think it's like driving a Ferrari just to go and pick up stuff from the store. I think it was overthought. I think that their whole process for doing this is a one-shot, because the adenovirus itself, or the one they're using, hasn't been exposed to the humans before, and this is our first opportunity, or this is their opportunity to use this adenovirus to deliver this package. But once it's delivered, we won't be able to use it again, because we'll have already encountered it. Yeah? So the autoimmune disorders, which come as a result of something floating around your body for too long, and us having a reaction to it, is also an outcome that was found from 2002 onwards. It's also there's a time frame involved in this which is much longer than we thought. So I'm hoping that the evidence will come to light soon. They said that some people who had the virus already and then had the vaccine suffered from very similar to autoimmune function. They said that they also had a much better, how's this? If you had the virus and then you get the vaccine, you've got an even better chance of surviving the virus when you get it next. Well, you'd hope so, right? If they actually engineered the virus to have no payload, that would be the best version of a vaccine for us, because at the moment the spike protein contains 3 different amino acids, and only changing one, we can still detect it. Modifying any more than one, if you had 2 modifications, it's not visible to our immune systems, and it can be it can go straight past it. So you'd still become infected just as you would without the vaccine if you can evade it. But the likelihood that it can change all 3 amino acids in the spike protein, in the ACE2 protein, will make it inoperable. It won't be able to replicate with us. We'd be able to get it, but it wouldn't do anything to us. If its ACE2 receptor is lost, then it becomes a moot point. It can't replicate. So I just want to put that out there, because I think that's really kind of the most important factor in this. Each time it mutates, it can change something about itself, and it can change all 3, or it can change only one, or it can maintain it. So it can either get worse or better, I suppose, if you wanted to say that. So if it shortened the gestation period, comes on quickly, it's really noticeable, we can isolate it. If it's a really long gestation period, but it's still transmissible, then you could be spreading it for ages before you noticed, or never noticed. You could be what they call a super spreader, where you actually have no symptoms at all, and you're just shedding it everywhere. Good luck with that, right? Whereas the severity of it, if we could breed a version of it that was 0 severe, we just came and got it. We got it. We noticed it, like an antivirus download. We were able to find it. It did nothing to us at all. Then that'd be great. Then we'd be able to just simply use that to be able to vaccinate ourselves with it. But also transmissibility. If it isn't transmissible, then that's the end of the virus. So it totally makes sense that the more you let it replicate, the more opportunity it has to go in all 3 directions, better, worse, or the same. But that's what we're seeing. We're seeing it getting worse. We're seeing, because if you have 1 million people, it only takes, 0.5% or 1 person, out of 1 million for it to have a mutation that is all 3 of those as worse. Yeah? Makes sense? I hope it makes sense. It makes sense to me anyway. And I've tried to, that's what comes up all the time when people go, hey, Dave, how's that virus thing? What's the vaccine? Tell me about it. What do you know? Well, I basically say just what I've said then. And I said, I'm not going to tell you that it modifies your genes, because it doesn't. Because I'm not going to tell you that it has nanobots in it that's going to program you in any way. And no, there's not enough data in the mRNA strand of the virus to do that. Plus, they use microspherules, I love that word, which is like little droplets of atomized butter, to have the mRNA in it so that it remains intact and it melts at body temperature. That's why you've got to freeze these darn vaccines. When it's injected into you, your body heat melts it and the mRNA is then released. Yeah, I think that kind of science is great. I don't believe the people who have been led down the garden path, down a rabbit hole, into believing it's all bad. I think what I think is maybe too quick is the use of it in a wider public audience. Yeah, they can say we vaccinated the whole planet. Yeah, good luck with that, right? Even if it was compulsory and you did it, you're going to lose, the 1% of one. So one in, I don't know how many, 1 in a million maybe people are going to die from it anyway, because all of our DNA is different. And the fringe, as the outer perimeter of our population grows, and it grows exponentially because our population is increasing, but the volume within that circle, like the outside perimeter, is always increasing. That's the fringe at which is only the outside circle is the most vulnerable, because they have the most difference. We're not all replicating exactly as humans every time, otherwise we'd all look the same, and we'd all be the same as the bottleneck event. We'd all look identical, but we don't. We all have differences. I know I've got some genes that I passed on to my daughter. She has I've got HHT, look it up. She has HRT. That's not hormone replacement therapy, that's therapy. It's the other one. So my gene plus a mutant of hers caused her issue. And that places us in you can get the vaccine now. But because I'm over 50, I can't get the Pfizer one. Apparently, I've got to get the AstraZeneca one. I don't want it. I don't want that one. I want the Pfizer one, and I'm going to kick up a big stink to hopefully get that one, or get a doctor's orders to do it. So I don't know. And at some point, for my job and for everyone's jobs, everyone listening here, the disincentive schemes that our governments are going to make up to make us get the vaccine, and fight it all, whatever's in you, fight against it as much as possible. The disincentive schemes from a voluntary vaccination program. So they'll make it voluntary and go, we don't care if you get it or not. It doesn't matter, right? You want it, it's here, you can have it. Then the next thing is, well, you know what, you can't go into a business. A business might put a plaque on the front door saying only vaccinated people are allowed entry. And of course, then you have to prove that you had it. So that means you have vaccination passports, and it's going to be, quite German during World War II, your papers, So you're going to have to carry your papers with you everywhere, and that's going to be proof that you've had a vaccine. They're already telling us that we won't be able to travel internationally unless we've been vaccinated, so that's also a disincentive. So if you want to go overseas, you're going to have to get it. So how is that voluntary if they're forcing you to do it just because you want to do an activity? You won't be able to go into old folks' homes, even if you are vaccinated, and even if they are vaccinated themselves, because you're still going to shed the virus, and just because it reduces the severity doesn't mean that it's still harmless. I think we're still going to find people who, it was a different variant of the virus, a year from now, possibly, where someone has a different strain of the virus. The majority of people might have been vaccinated, but you proudly show your vaccination passport, but you're carrying with asymptomatically a different strain of it, and you kill unknowing to you. You infect someone at the old folks home and it kills all of the people there. It's quite possible that we're going down a path like that. So it kind of makes me worry that because we're letting the virus run through our communities, it has more opportunity to mutate, and therefore it's going to mutate itself away from the current vaccines. And it's probably the stupidest thing that we've ever done as a human race, is to not isolate all of each other from everybody. Don't care what the cost is to the whole of society. As long as we can stop it from replicating and finding new hosts, then it'll eventually go away. It would have already gone away. It wouldn't have been able to last a year with only one host. In the olden, when we first had it, we had a 70% case fatality rate. Now the CFR globally is 3.67%. Of all the people who have been tested who have then passed away, is 3.67%. Now just think about what that means. If they're saying that the Pfizer vaccine is 91% effective, that's the efficacy rate, and the AstraZeneca one, they were saying it was 94%, still leaves a gap. But still 6% could die if you've got the AstraZeneca, and still 9% could die if you've got the Pfizer one. Because I think once everyone's walking around with their papers proudly showing them everyone, hey, it's all good, look at this, I'm vaccinated, whatever, right? Then they'll haplessly become infected with a new strain that's replicating itself unabated. I think the only way to touch this is just lock the whole planet down, stop it getting around, stop people traveling from country to country, lock the countries down, or prevent people from traveling. I know friends of mine that are traveling right now. I don't know how. Don't ask me how. They have enough money that maybe you just buy your tickets, right? And you just go places. I don't know. I wish I knew. Maybe it's just a thing. I'd like someone to let me know in the chat room. Oh, by the way, there's a chat room if you're listening to this for the first time, and not on YouTube, but it's at the station, freedomslips.com. Go there and have a look. I've got it. I can't keep going with the vaccine anymore, right? I'm sure my channel will get taken down. I've said the word enough. Won't be the first time. All right, so the next story here is the government elite. Every time someone says the elite, you've got to consider what it means. It means a layer above everybody else. That's the elite, who are so disconnected that they have zero clue what happens on a day-to-day basis on everyone beneath them. I'm not talking about a CEO. I'm not talking about, your local member of parliament who's, still they live in a community. But for me, the government elite, the best example of it was this week in Australia, of all places. Who knew? But I'm sure you can find an example in the country that you live in. And if you have one, I'm happy to receive, URLs, post them in to the below the video. All right. So how out of touch is your government? Well, our Aussie PM has so few clues as to the female gender, despite him having his own children. He has daughters. In Australian Parliament, if you're not aware, there was a lot of sexual harassment. There was inappropriate touching, inappropriate actions, and one staffer even, I think the term was, grated his carrot onto a person of the opposite sex's table. If you can understand what that means, great, good for you, right? Just saying. That's how it was described on Australian radio. I don't know how that got past the people that were of concern, the filter people for that. But anyway, that's how it was described, and I felt as though that was probably the easiest way for to be able to describe it to anyone. And thankfully, they came up with the term, and I didn't. But look, in a female lives matter style of knee-jerk reaction, I'm not saying Black Lives Matter was knee-jerk, and I think Black Lives Matter, all lives matter. I think that their cause, particularly within the US, in Australia, we have a very similar thing where the Aboriginal Australians certainly occupy more berths in prison than anybody else. I mean berths, I mean a bed, more beds in prison than any other classification of person within Australia, probably the best way to put it. And I would prefer that not only is race eliminated in discussion, but also gender, non-binary or whatever. I don't even care. I don't care what you do at all. But it should be the word person. There shouldn't be any origin discussion. There shouldn't be any race discussion. There shouldn't be any gender. There shouldn't be any preference. It should just be the word person. And I don't care what legislation it is. They should all be written so generically that everyone has exactly the same rights. And if you don't, and if people treat a group differently because they're a group that are dissimilar to themselves, that's bad. Just saying. But however, back to my story. Now, the Australian Prime Minister, okay, he was so out of touch with women that he ended up he appointed 5 women into a leadership team just to appease the voters in Australia because he was so out of touch. That's probably a good way of putting it, because there was so much sexual harassment, inappropriate behaviour, just crass jokes and things, and all manner of things going on within Parliament House. This is the like Washington, or like not the White House, because you don't have all the parties in there, but like in the Senate. Imagine the Senate in the US, just rife with sexual harassment. It'd be awful. And it was even people who were raped in Parliament House by members of Parliament. That's just awful. I mean, it's truly abhorrent that should happen to anybody. And the Prime Minister cried, "Oh, it's awful. I've got daughters. I understand," and then did nothing. He did nothing about it. Yeah, could you imagine if someone of a person? I'm going to use my own terminology. Could you imagine if a person performed something with the Prime Minister against his will? Would he understand then? Quite possibly. But it drove them to think of ways they could solve it. And one was an app. Let's make an app, a consensual app, where both parties have to consent. I mean, there was no proof that either party did consent. One person, even if you use a fingerprint, you could, just use their fingerprint while they were passed out, right? It was awful. So as a result, I think anyone doing anything with anybody or any person with any other person, both parties should consent, right? And I joked about it, and it's a safety word, right? It's just a joke, and I don't want this to sound inappropriate. It's not. It's all about the government. And so now it's come out that since the install of this new team, the PM now has no idea that there's even a gender pay gap. My goodness. He goes, what do you mean women are paid less than men? What? Wait, when did that start happening? Oh, it's been happening since women became employed, Prime Minister. Oh, my goodness. So, look, I have to say, I nearly fell over when I heard it. I couldn't believe it. But I have to say, I suppose, in the Prime Minister's defence, that he's truly, this is what I think, He is only a puppet to Big Pharma and Big Coal, and if they didn't say the words, it wouldn't come out of his mouth. So isn't it time for his holiday in Hawaii? Isn't it what he's mostly known for, as from across the planet? Our own Prime Minister. So quite disappointing from a voter in this fascist regime that we have, where they just tell us what's going on, and there you go. Something I didn't know was going on here in America. Of course, you guys have Kmart. I think you don't have Target. We wrongly pronounce Target as a French-sounding word called Target to make it sound more upmarket. But Target reveals when Australian stores will close or convert to Kmart. I didn't even know that Target was owned by Kmart. That's new to me. I had no clue. And I didn't want to hover on this story. I just thought that was really interesting that, you find out in the news that one of the stores you've been visiting from a long time is owned by someone else. I should have done my research. In Australia, we've got, weather-wise, we've got a cyclone with another cyclone. So that's like a hurricane with a hurricane revolving around it as like a duo of hurricanes, but we call them cyclones. Same thing, just turns in an opposite direction. Right? And we still have the same classifications, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, right? There's no 6. One day they'll make up 6. It'll be, hopefully it's not this week. But this cyclone that formed as a dual pair of cyclones and one spinning around the outside, it's hitting our Western Australian coast right now, and it's a bit late in the season for it. Usually the Pacific Islands get one late Easter, but no, it's Western Australia. And if you're interested, have a look at that. But I wanted to finish this hour off in this last 15 minutes with something that was really cool. And it's kind of close to me because I wrote about this. I'll tell you what it is first, and I'll tell you when I wrote about it and where you can find it if you're interested. But it's a thing called plane pause. So plane pause is when the plane you're in, with all the engines running and everything happening, and your ailerons and your wings and your flaps and rudders and your tail is all providing an aerodynamic lift and control of the aircraft. But suddenly, it's just stopped in the air. The engine's still going. There's no more wind. Like you're encapsulated in like a bubble of some kind. Oddly. Don't understand how, but I'll get to the story. The news article says ex-CIA director believes UFOs could exist after PAL's, so his friend's plane paused at 40,000 feet. That's it. I wrote about this in my book. I've got a book called Visitors, A Lifetime of Experiences. It's about my crazy old life and all the things that happened. And individually, each one of the events that happened in my life, you could just go, don't worry about it, whatever, right? It's all good. You shouldn't have to worry about that, Dave. Don't be concerned with it. Say, my friends, my family, and even a professional that I sought to attempt to work out what on earth's going on. And extraordinary. So one of the things that happened to me was, and I've written about, like I said, it's in the book, and if you're interested, you can go to detail. But the jet that I was in, with passengers and a pilot and co-pilot, flight crew, it's only an hour flight, we ended up suffering missing time. The plane was frozen in the air and the ground was not moving beneath us at all. And the pilot seemed completely disorientated and stumbled out of, this is after 9/11 too, by the way. So, we all had those, the locked pilot door and everything, right? Cockpit door, or compartment, whatever, right? And he came stumbling out, grasping on the top of the chairs, that people are seated in didn't know who he was. He was in a state that I've never seen anyone. Like he was punch drunk. Unbelievable. And I just thought to myself, at that immediate point, I thought, I can land a 747 in a simulator at the old Kai-Tak airport in Hong Kong, where you had to do a 180-degree full bank turn through the buildings and then lay it down on the deck. Yeah, it's crazy. And we stayed in one of those hotels that was in the middle of the flight path in the arc. That was absolute nuts that they would fly in and do this arc down and turn down, between these buildings. That airport is now closed, and they've moved it to a fake island they've made, but it also has the most hydraulics to keep the thing flat because it's sinking all over the place. But anyway, and it'll be underwater in a meter's time, in sea level rise anyway. But anyway, so James Woosley, the former CIA director, said that his mate's plane paused at 40,000 feet in the air. Now, it's the first time since I've written it in my book. I think the event happened back in 2006 or thereabouts, for me. And it was mentioned in the Black Vault. They interviewed the fellow in the Black Vault. So if you're interested in that YouTube channel, you support them on Patreon. And look, I've written to John Greenwald about my story, and if he's interested in seeing what happens with that. I don't want any press really, but I want him to know just in the background what was truly going on. And it's not, for me, this was the first time I've ever heard anyone else talk about it. Everyone told me I was mad. Now we've got the CIA director, the ex-CIA director, talking about it openly, like it's a thing. And I was like, well, I told you, didn't I tell you? And to prove it, years ago, there it is in my book. Good luck. Right? So I think this is one of those really hard things. We live in a time right now where you've got to consider this in your own terms, and what does it mean for you? That if alien life exists everywhere in the universe, it's probably teeming with life, to be honest. The Drake equation proves it just on its own, and that's lowballing it. There's 10,000 alien civilizations who are more advanced than we are. That the equation has, the lifespan of the sun, where you are, because you can't be in like the middle of the galaxy because there's too many, X-rays and things that would never allow life to kick off or even exist on a planet without dying, because it would just be hideous. So there's a Goldilocks zone inside our galaxy, and it's the outer ring like a donut around the middle. So using the Drake equation on its own, it winds up around about 10,000. And that's a lot. It's not one. The equation doesn't discover one and it's us. It's 10,000. And if there was 52, like we've interviewed before, the fellow who came out in the press club and spoke about this being as a member of the military and having already known that 52 civilizations or alien species have already visited the planet, then it's not that far a leap then to say that there's tech here that isn't ours. In 2019, the US Navy vessel said that they were swarmed by alien craft. Swarmed. This is past the Tic Tac. This is past David Fravor. This is, finding one and chasing it and having it on some reasonably terrible footage, but the actual footage can't be displayed like their good footage. Can't be, because has a technology that is still under wraps. So what we've currently got as evidence is the best we're going to get from them until, 25 years from now, when, they've upgraded the next one. They can go, oh, look what we had back then. We couldn't show you. Sorry about that. So it's kind of a thing. All right. Now, I'm astounded at the decline. I'm just going to say this out loud. At the decline of Joe Biden. I'm also astounded at the increasing tensions that both China is exhibiting on the planet in this race to own it all and control it all, and that Australia's kind of stuck in the middle. We're going to start making our own missiles, apparently, which is pretty cool. UK have decided to buy their own jets. Taiwan is now running drills every day against an invasion and have declared openly they will fight until they're all dead and not give it up to China. And China's saying, well, it's ours, stay out of our internal affairs. That's not going to happen. So the question that I try to ask everyone is, do you think that America would gladly give up its seat for a communist country who is committing genocide against the Uyghurs? I wonder. I kind of sometimes I feel like Morpheus. You think that's air breathing? Because in this crazy simulation we're in, this is the situation we've got all around us. If you, Mickey and I have spoken about this together, and we said you better stock up. Now's the time to actually stock up. If you're not prepping, I'd be prepping right now. Prep as much as you need, as much as you think you need to prep. Don't prep and don't just go buy toilet paper like silly people. Yeah, you can buy some, but there's always a tap, there's always a hose, or there's always some way of being able to keep yourself clean. It doesn't have to be toilet paper used, because where are you going to put the toilet paper once your house doesn't flush the toilet any longer? Because you're not going to put it in the toilet. Probably have to dig a hole in the yard. Go back to that. We can go back to that. That was awful. There's always a spider under the toilet seat. Snakes, especially in Australia. We've already got. We have a new neighbour joining us in about a month's time, 6 weeks' time. One of my neighbours sold. They've got new people. It's going to be a riot. I think they come from Sydney, and they're going to have the time of their life discovering all of the new creepy crawlies and things that kill you. That's my neighbour. My other new neighbour is a tremendous fellow, and he calls me Outback Dave. I think it's only because I live behind him in the bush, which is pretty funny. But anyway, we're right at the top of the hour. The music's going to start any second, and I'm going to wish everybody a tremendous day. I'm going to come back for another hour, and hopefully I can talk about biological weapons, having cracked the news. But if Meki isn't with me, I'm not sure I'm going to know where to start, where he kicked off or where he ended up last week. But anyway, stay tuned. If you're watching this on YouTube, I'm going to drop the channel and come back again. But I'll catch you just in a couple of minutes' time on the other side of the hour. This is Dave and Meki's Shiny Side Out.